The morning sun gleamed across rolling fields of lush grass, painting the landscape in a golden hue. September breezes swept through the countryside, carrying the gentle scent of lavender from the hills beyond. The film crew had arrived the day before, setting up lights and cameras around a quaint farmhouse perched on a slight rise, overlooking fields laced with wildflowers. Ariel Lawson stepped onto the porch, her script clutched in her manicured hands. She was the lead actress in the upcoming indie drama, and while she was no stranger to traveling for her job, she was entirely unprepared for how different this rural village felt from her usual film locations. Ariel had grown up in the bustle of Los Angeles, a city vibrant with neon lights, paparazzi, and star studded events. She'd spent her days rushing from one audition to the next, grabbing fast food between exhausting rehearsals, barely pausing to breathe. Over the years, she had perfected the art of looking calm under bright lights and delivering her lines with impassioned sincerity. Yet, behind that polished veneer, she sometimes felt restless and disconnected. Whenever she was forced to film in far flung areas, she viewed the trip as a short inconvenience, just something to endure until shooting wrapped. Yet there was something undeniably captivating about this rural slice of heaven. Ariel looked out and saw worn fences, hay bales stacked at the edges of fields, and weathered barns standing like silent sentinels. For a moment, she almost forgot the cameras that trailed her wherever she went. Here, the beauty was unself-conscious, absent of any pretension. She drew a breath of fresh air, her lungs filling with something pure. This morning's break from the hectic schedule was an unanticipated gift. She descended the porch steps, noticing that the director and the rest of the crew were still inside discussing the upcoming shot. Ariel decided to explore a bit on her own. Tucking her script under her arm, she followed a narrow dirt path that led away from the house and into the fields beyond. The path snaked through patches of wheat, grown tall and golden in the late summer sun. She found herself straying farther, as though pulled by a gently persistent force. Away from the cars, the chatter, the cameras, each step felt oddly liberating. Eventually, she came to a fence separating the farmland behind the house from a neighboring expanse of meadows. Leaning against the wooden rails was a man inspecting the fence line, his back turned to her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, obviously strong from hours of farm work. A straw hat shielded his face from the sun, his hands clad in dusty gloves that gripped a hammer. He hadn't noticed her yet, entirely absorbed in whatever repair he was planning. "Is this private property?" Ariel asked tentatively, not wanting to overstep. The man turned around, and she saw that he was younger than she suspected. Late 20s, perhaps? His eyes were a deep brown that reflected a calm seriousness. His cheeks flushed, likely from a morning of labor under the sun. A tiny grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I guess you could say it's private," he responded, "but only because this fence line belongs to my family. I'm not particularly strict with boundaries. You're welcome, though." She smiled, rough edges of her nerves smoothing away beneath this friendly gaze. "Thanks, I was just taking a walk, that's all. Go right ahead. The fields are beautiful this time of day." There was no hint of resentment or suspicion in his voice, just a warm, down-to-earth politeness. He lifted the hat from his head, ran a hand through hair that hung around his brow, then put the hat back on. "You must be part of that film crew next door." Rael nodded. "Yes, I am. Well, I'm the lead, actually." "Sure. I'd heard there was a movie star around." His gaze, though curious, did not hold the usual star-struck awe she was accustomed to. "Name's Cole Donovan." "Ariel Lawson," she said, offering her hand across the fence. His handshake was firm and genuine. "Don't worry. I'm actually not a big shot." Cole gave a measured nod. "Well, welcome to town, whether you're a big shot or not. It's good to have some excitement around here. We don't get many film productions." They shared a moment of silence, just two strangers in the middle of a field, the sun beaming across their shoulders. Then Ariel excused herself, feeling oddly shy. She pivoted, deciding to head back to the farmhouse so she wouldn't hold up the schedule. As she walked away, She sensed Cole's gaze lingering, not in a predatory way, but with mild curiosity. The next day brought new excitement. On set, Ariel's co stars scrambled with lines and the director barked instructions about lighting. Early on, a major scene was scheduled to be shot near a pond that lay against Cole's property. When the crew huddled around the water's edge, they found Cole waiting. He'd been asked to keep bystanders away from the perimeter for quiet on set, and in exchange, the production had offered to pay a small fee. He waved at Ariel when she arrived, but they didn't have time to chat. Instead, he took up a position not far from the assembled equipment, arms folded in casual observation. Sometimes she felt his eyes on her while she delivered lines. At first, it made her self conscious. She was used to paparazzi, but not to an onlooker with such quiet intensity. During a break, Ariel drifted from the huddle of stylists and approached Cole. She felt her heart flutter oddly, and for a split second she wondered if it was because of the scene she'd just shot or some deeper reason. "Do you spend all your time here on the farm?" she asked, glancing at the pond's glassy surface. A wry smile touched Cole's lips. "It's not just a job, it's a lifestyle. My family's owned this land for 4 generations. Farming may not be glamorous, but there's something about the soil and the open sky that keeps me grounded." "It's quite different from what I'm used to," she said, her voice softer now. "Everything where I'm from is faster, noisier. There's so much competition just to stand out. Sometimes I wish I could, I don't know, breathe." "That's the biggest perk of a place like this," Cole replied. "We breathe freely here." One of the camera operators called for Arieli's attention, cutting short the conversation. She walked away, a curious warmth in her chest. When she glanced over her shoulder, Cole was already focused on a squeaky wheelbarrow or some minor farm task, but she could see his understanding, as if in their short exchanges he perceived more of her than she had intended to reveal. By the end of the second week, the novelty of the location began to fade for most of the film crew, but not for Ariel. Whenever she had a spare minute, she strolled through the fields and orchard, finding small pockets of beauty that compelled her to linger. The orchard was a hidden treasure, orchard trees heavily laden with bright red apples. She once asked a local if it was all right to take one, and the farmer just chuckled and encouraged her to pick as many as she liked. The crisp sweetness of the fruit felt like a miracle, miles apart from the packaged produce she usually grabbed at the grocery store back in Los Angeles. That same day, Ariel was quietly munching on her apple in a corner of the orchard when Cole appeared, leading a gentle horse by its bridle. The animal snorted softly, pawing at the ground. "I was about to take Missy out for a short ride," he said. "Would you like some company? Or are you enjoying your solitude?" She laughed lightly. "No, I wouldn't mind a bit of company, and that's a beautiful horse." "This girl's been my companion since her foal days," Cole said fondly, patting Missy's neck. "You're welcome to ride as well, if you're comfortable with it. Otherwise, we can just walk." Intrigued, Arielle set aside the half-eaten apple. "I haven't ridden in years," she admitted. "I did some lessons as a kid, but that was a long time ago." He gestured for her to come closer. "Missy's calm, and I'll walk on foot so you can ease into it. She'll take care of you." Moments later, Ariel found herself hoisted onto the saddle with surprising ease, though her heart raced. She could feel the warmth of the horse beneath her, a raw connection she hadn't known she craved. Cole led them across the orchard and past the fields, the rhythmic sound of Missy's hooves lulling Ariel into an unexpected peace. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall grass, throwing flecks of gold across them like confetti. They didn't talk much at first, just occasional remarks about the orchard or the farmland. Ariel let the silence envelop her like a comforting quilt. She looked down at Cole, noticing how gently he kept hold of the reins. His ease and skill around the horse revealed a quiet confidence that city life never really called for. "Thank you," she finally said. "This is the nicest break I've had all week." He gave her a nod, still guiding Missy along. "I'm glad you're enjoying it." Sometimes just realizing you can step away from the stress is the first step to breathing again. Later, after returning Missy to the stable, Cole insisted Ariel wait a moment. He disappeared inside the barn and reemerged with a basket. Fresh strawberries, he explained. I picked them this morning. Figured you might like some. Her face lit up. You must be reading my mind. I'll bring them to the set tomorrow for everyone. They'll love it. Thank you, Cole. He gave a half shrug, but a spark in his eye showed satisfaction. Arielle hesitated, thinking how unusual it was for her to ask anything of someone she barely knew. Yet the sincerity of his gestures had nudged her out of her usual reticence. Could you teach me more about this place? About what you do every day? She asked. I realize I'm here to film, but I'd love to learn. I'd be happy to. You might have to get your hands dirty, though, he teased. She grinned, nibbling on a strawberry. I'm willing to try. In the days that followed, Ariel juggled her demanding shoot schedule with short pockets of free time spent exploring the farm with Cole. She fed the chickens, learning to scatter feed in the early mornings. She watched him repair a broken wood beam in the barn, marveling at his resourcefulness. She asked questions about seeds, crops, and orchard maintenance, soaking up knowledge that felt refreshing and mundane in ways she couldn't have predicted. Before long, Cole started calling her his star pupil, and she'd laugh. As the relationship grew, Ariel discovered a new side to herself. She hadn't realized how starved she was for a more honest existence. Certainly, her career demanded performance, glamour, and perpetual upkeep of her public persona. But in these twilight walks across the farm with Cole, she found simplicity. They sat on bales of hay and talked about their childhoods. He recalled rolling down the hills with his siblings and fishing in the creek. She recounted stories of audition rooms and bright red carpets. Their worlds were starkly different, but as they shared slices of their history, they found an unexpected thread of kinship. Both of them were defined by traditions, his shaped by farmland, hers shaped by Hollywood. Yet they both carried a yearning to hold on to something that felt real. One afternoon, Ariel caught her reflection in a barn window. She hardly recognized the wind-blown hair and sun-kissed cheeks. Her eyes, however, shone with a new warmth. Maybe she was falling in love with this land, or perhaps it was with the man who had welcomed her into it. She wasn't entirely sure, and the uncertainty both thrilled and terrified her. The film production moved relentlessly forward. A few more key scenes were shot on Cole's property, bringing the hustle right to his doorstep. The day before the final shoot, a rumor circulated among the staff. The distributor had offered Ariel a lead role in another, bigger project, slated to start filming immediately after this one wrapped. Normally, Ariel would have jumped at the chance without hesitation. A meaty role was always a stepping stone in Hollywood. Yet, for reasons she couldn't quite parse, she found herself hesitating. She confided this dilemma to Cole one evening after the last shot of the day. They sat beneath the old oak tree that stood watch over the orchard. Soft candlelight from the filming crew's distant tents illuminated the horizon. I'm torn, she murmured, cross-legged on the grass. This new role, it's huge, but something about it makes me feel like I'm going to miss out on something real. Cole studied her with a quiet empathy. I can't pretend to understand what it's like to be in your industry, he said finally. But I know that when an opportunity calls, it's rarely wise to just throw it away. Still, it depends on what your heart wants. She fiddled with a blade of grass, feeling uncharacteristically vulnerable. That's just it. I'm not sure I know what my heart wants right now. Career success is great, but I don't think I've felt this content in, well, ever. He fell silent, and the stillness made Ariel's chest tighten. She feared she had opened herself too wide. She worried about hearing that it was just a fling, a passing infatuation with country life. But Cole reached out, brushing a speck of dust from her shoulder. I don't think you have to choose between contentment and your dreams, he said. Life can be complicated. But if you love what you do, you find people, places, and ways to make it all fit. His words soothed her, though they didn't dissolve the tension completely. The next day, she threw herself into filming with renewed focus, capturing the final big scenes in a swirl of makeup, costumes, and countless retakes. Amid the chaos, Cole's presence remained a quiet anchor whenever he was around, handing out water bottles or helping the production staff maneuver equipment through the fields. She recalled more than once how different it was from the showy, star catered world she was used to. And she liked it. She liked him. When the final cut rang out on the last day, the director called for a wrap party at the farmhouse to celebrate. Late into the night, the small yard was filled with laughter and music. Fairy lights hung from the trees, a makeshift dance floor emerged in the grass, and folks from the nearby town showed up to share in the merriment. Ariel found herself in the middle of it all, swirling from conversation to conversation, accepting congratulations and well wishes. At some point, she sensed a hand on her arm, gentle yet firm, guiding her away from the chat. She turned to see Cole. "Come on," he whispered, leading her past the dancing crew members and into the darkness beyond the glow of the lights. They approached a gently sloping hill, the grass tickling their ankles. Above them, the sky shimmered with scattered stars, clearer than any sky Ariel had witnessed in the city. Cole spread a worn picnic blanket on the ground. "Thought we might stargaze," he said quietly. She sank down beside him, the distant hum of music drifting from the farmhouse. He leaned back on his elbows, gazing skyward. She joined him, and for a while they sat in companionable silence, identifying constellations, pointing to tiny flickers of light that might be satellites or planes. The hush of the night seemed to press them closer, as if the stars themselves breathed warmth over them. Ariel tilted her head, noticing the tension that had lined her face for months, melting away. She felt Cole shift slightly and turned to see his eyes on her, filled with a softness that took her breath away. She wasn't sure who moved first, but the moment their lips met, the entire world seemed to narrow to just that quiet contact. A gentle breeze ruffled her hair, or maybe it was the unstoppable beat of her heart that made it feel like the earth was moving. "I hope you don't mind," Cole whispered afterward, his voice barely audible over the distant music. She touched his cheek. "Not at all. I've been wondering," he exhaled, a grin forming. "Me too." They lingered, the blanket on the grass and the star-strewn sky serving as their witness. Eventually they made their way back to the party, but the memory of that shared moment glowed in Ariel's mind like a secret warmth. A few days after the wrap party, the film crew began packing up. Their vans rumbled down the dirt road, heading back toward the city, and leaving behind only the faint footprints of their presence. Ariel lingered, overseeing the last of her personal belongings. Her suitcase was lined up near the porch. She stared at it, grappling with the reality that soon she'd return to Los Angeles, to the bright skyline and aggressive demands of her profession. Cole appeared around the side of the house. He was carrying a small potted lavender plant, its purple blossoms bobbing gracefully. "I thought you might like this," he said, setting it at her feet. "A reminder of the countryside you've grown fond of." She thanked him, taking the pot into her hands as though it were delicate glass rather than a sturdy clay pot. "It's wonderful. I'll find a place for it in my apartment. Although I can't promise it'll get as much sun as it does here." He lifted his hand, then let it drop, as if uncertain how to express what he was feeling. "So," he said at last, "when do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning," she replied, heart sinking a little at the finality of it. "I have some last-minute errands in town tonight, but after that I'm on a plane back to LA." Cole nodded, taking this in. "You'll be gone longer than you were here, but if you want to come back—" He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "You should know you're always welcome. And not just for a visit, but if you ever need a place to breathe." She gripped the lavender pot a little tighter. "Thank you," she whispered, tears threatening. "Cole, this place feels like something I never knew I needed." "You feel like something I never knew I needed." He stepped forward, gently wrapped his arms around her. They remained like that for a moment, swaying. The quiet acceptance in his touch told her that they didn't need to define it all right now. She lifted her head, and he lowered his mouth to hers in a lingering kiss that spoke every word they couldn't say. The next day, Aurieli departed, tears in her eyes as she looked out the window of the car. She gazed at the fields of golden wheat, the barns, and the orchard, shrinking into the distance. The quiet life she'd tasted had left her yearning. Whether it was for the place or the person who embodied it, she wasn't completely certain. But she left with something intangible, a subtle transformation she felt stirring deep within her. Back in Los Angeles, everything snapped back into frenetic motion. Her phone rang constantly with offers and invitations. The city lights shone just as bright as before. She dove into rehearsals for the newly offered role, and at first the sum of responsibilities swept her away in a tsunami of tasks. Yet between wardrobe fittings and script analyses, she'd brush her fingertips against the small pot of lavender on her windowsill, letting its light, herbal perfume steady her. Ariel stayed in touch with Cole through long phone calls and an endless stream of text messages. Pictures of Missy grazing near the orchard, snapshots of the evening sky, or a half joking video of him trying to fix a busted tractor while teasing that he'd teach her next time she visited. She sent back glimpses of her hectic life, restaurant selfies with other actors, glimpses of red carpet events, and voice notes about her day. Slowly, the threads connecting them pulled tighter. Ariel realized she could no longer envision an existence that did not include that quiet farmland. The new role was huge, but she began carving out a plan so that if everything went well, she wouldn't be bound to city living indefinitely. Maybe she could split her time, or maybe she could pitch a film location out in Cole's territory for future projects. The specifics were unclear, but the hope was there, and it was exhilarating. When, at last, the new film wrapped, Ariel found herself too restless to stick around LA. She threw clothes into a suitcase, grabbed that lavender pot, and left a note for her agent about a much-needed break. The flight back to that charming rural community felt like a homecoming, an odd sensation for someone who had only spent a month there. Yet the sight of those rolling fields, dotted cows, and worn fences stirred her heart with a galvanizing sense of belonging. Call met her at the small local airport in his truck. He lifted her suitcase, greeted her with a grin and a kiss that told her everything she needed to know. As they drove down the winding roads toward his property, Ariel rolled down the window, letting the wind whip her hair. The golden fields stretched on either side, and she recognized each bend in the road, each orchard tree. A hush of certainty settled over her. This was more than just an escape. It was a rediscovery of a part of herself that had been buried under bright lights and relentless ambition. Back on the farm, she found the orchard as lush as ever in the warm season. Cole set her suitcase down on the porch. They took a moment, looking at each other with the weight of unspoken promises lingering in the space between them. "Are you staying a while?" he asked, voice filled with quiet hope. Ariel slipped her hand into his. "I think so. I want to see how it feels to make this place another home. If you'll have me," she added, teasing gently. His smile was the dawn breaking across a summer sky. "You know you didn't even have to ask." They walked side by side into the orchard, the late afternoon light wrapping around them in a gentle glow. She felt the rough earth beneath her shoes and the soft hush of the wind passing through the apple trees. She could practically feel the farmland's rhythm pulsing against her own heartbeat. Cole glanced at her, and she recognized the same sense of awe mirrored in his gaze. The orchard seemed to sing with life, cicadas, birds, and rustling leaves weaving an orchestral soundtrack. Ariel halted under the very oak tree where they had once sat talking about their vastly different worlds. She placed her palm against the trunk, remembering that night spent counting stars alongside him. Now, both of them stood at the threshold of something new, uncertain yet quietly assured by the closeness they had forged. In that moment, Ariel knew she was done fighting the persistent voice in her heart that yearned for something more than fleeting glitz. As the day waned, they meandered back to the porch. Cole produced 2 glasses of chilled lemonade. A hush descended over them, but it was a comfortable silence, loaded with promise. They sipped slowly, watching the sky transition from eyelash pink to deep lavender, the sun's last rays fading over the fields. Ariel leaned against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him and the rugged wood of the railing beneath her arm. She breathed in the crisp air, tinged with the faint fragrance of hay and cut grass. For once, she didn't have to worry about the next script or the next glamorous event. She wasn't giving up her passion for acting, she knew that, but she was refusing to let it swallow her whole. She was choosing to be fully present, to embrace the pulse of the earth under her feet, and to treasure the steady reassurance of the man beside her. Here, under these wide skies and endless fields, she found a wholeness that no red carpet premiere could replicate. Cole turned, setting his lemonade aside. "You're at peace now," he observed, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. "I can see it in your eyes." She nodded, tears catching at the corners of her vision. "I am," she whispered. "Thank you for making me feel at home." He tilted his head, the corners of his mouth curving in that gentle, genuine smile that she recalled so well from their first meeting at the fence line. "You've already found home," he said softly. "You just had to stop and recognize it." She let her eyes drift shut, a tear slipping down her cheek. In the amber glow of the setting sun, Cole pressed another kiss to her lips. The fields of enchantment spread out around them, bearing witness to that quiet vow. She knew that in the hush of twilight, when the stars began their nightly dance, this new life of hers would begin, a graceful melding of the actress who sought the spotlight and the woman who found solace in open skies and tender arms. And here, beneath the rustling leaves and the fluttering hearts, she had discovered a love that was dazzling in its own way, every bit as brilliant as a Hollywood premiere, but far more enduring.